With the Path of Exile 2 Third Edict live stream now fully wrapped up, I can definitely talk about what I'm looking forward to the most, and these are the 3 things I'm most hyped for. So that being said, let's get into it. One of the most impactful changes for me personally when it came to playing PoE 2 was the build diversity, or rather lack thereof, in previous patches. But with the Third Edict, we're now getting access to a lot more support gems, them being able to be applied to multiple different skills and abilities, thus allowing for players to really diversify their builds, adding more creativity, and thus really giving players a sense of incentive to want to grind through the game and make use of their specific builds that they like, which to me I think is wonderful. I think before it was just kind of limiting, and it created this very restrictive meta where we saw again, the same builds over and over again, the same abilities over and over again, the same skills, and it didn't really equate to anything spectacular. But now, with a greater incentive applied to support gems and getting a lot more linear support gems for the end game and uniques to chase after, I think now we're going to see a lot more creativity, especially for people like myself who love to create builds and provide guides for players. I think this will be a plus for everybody. So that being said, let's move on to the next point. Another huge addition for me is definitely the Act 4 being added. And that's just because, as someone who has been to the end game several times with multiple classes, it can feel really boring and sluggish having to run the same 3 acts again and again and again, especially when you know what you have to do. It doesn't really add any real incentive and motivation to want to play. So it's great that they finally added the Act 4 alongside the interludes, which, from what I've watched on the live stream and heard from Jonathan and Mark, the Act 4 is going to be non-linear, which means you can actually pick and choose how you want to play out the act itself, with the interludes kind of being more of a directive. That is, they're more like side quests that lead you into the end game, but they're more on the linear side, meaning you don't really necessarily, you don't have a non-linear way of approaching it like you would in the Act 4 itself. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm just very happy that we now have an act that is brand new, that's fresh, that's non-linear, which then gives players the chance to explore the game at their own pace, but also it creates this very personalized feeling because not everybody's going to go through the act the same way. And of course, there are likely going to be buffs and benefits to how you progress through the act, which I think will be another great incentive. So for me personally, I'm pretty hyped for the new act. Let me know what you folks think in the comments section. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more PoE 2 content. And that being said, let's talk about the last and final point. While the end game to me is certainly going to be an interesting adventure and one that I'm very excited about, I'm actually more hyped for the new bosses and the uniques that we're going to be chasing after, because that's really what makes build crafting so fun, and being able to test them against these new bosses with a new element of challenge is going to be something I'm really looking to dive deeper into. And because we're getting a large influx of new bosses across multiple new endgame maps as well, that's going to really help to ensure that not only will the new act feel fresh and invigorating, but the end game will also provide an extended source of that dopamine and excitement. So for me personally, that's what I'm really looking forward to. I want to try out the new weapons and the uniques. I want to see how they kind of balance things out. Of course, I'm a Huntress main, so I want to see how things pan out with regards to just her build and what I can do with the spear, and maybe adding in more of bows to my build as well to see how freeze and the new lightning stats work. So all that I'm really hyped for. So that being said, folks, as always, new warriors, stay strong, keep fighting, and may the force be with you all always. And I'll see you very soon for the new edict, or rather the Third Edict for Path of Exile 2. Until then, take care.